We got Jonathan Jones joining the program to break down some news and storylines outside a wild card weekend. And no bigger news today than Mike McCarthy officially out as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys as his contract expires there. Not fired, expired. So, Jonathan, what was the genesis of this, and who are some of the front runners to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys next year?
Yeah, so I reported that the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy couldn't agree on contract length. So one can assume or extrapolate from that the Cowboys wanted fewer years, that Mike McCarthy wanted more years. In the past couple of weeks, as I've been talking around the league, obviously McCarthy signed a 5-year deal when he went to Dallas. Agents that I spoke to said there's no reason that he should take anything less than 4 if and when he were to have signed an extension. I don't know what the Cowboys were offering Mike McCarthy, but clearly it was not something that he found appealing to him. So now he and the rest of his staff, they were all on expiring deals. They are, as of now, free agents. They can go anywhere that they want, interview wherever they want. That's the deal there. As far as head coach candidates, I mean, you know, guys, we could talk about all the usual suspects, if you will, and all the guys that we've talked about for the Jets and the Bears and the Saints and the Jags and all that stuff, or we could just talk about Bill Belichick. We could talk about Belichick, who still wants the NFL all-time wins record, who was in Chapel Hill, a place that, though he was somewhat convincing at his introductory press conference there about how much the place means to him. Were you convinced? You know, it's a $10 million buyout by June the 1st, what is $10 million to Jerry Jones? What is $10 million to Bill Belichick, who made 2.5 times that just last year with the New England Patriots? You know, you talk about staff that he's assembled there. You know, a lot of that staff could come with him to Dallas, right? And so all these things, you know, are going to pick up steam. Belichick to Dallas, that is a rumor that you are going to hear far and wide for some time. When you're going to hear Bill Belichick and people around him, his proxies, say publicly that they are committed to North Carolina, they're not going anywhere. That's what they said last week. That's what they'll continue to say, of course. That could ultimately be true, but I would have to imagine that there will be an exploration, if not on one side, on both sides for this potential union.
Well, you know what, JJ? I hadn't even thought about Bill Belichick, but I think maybe he has had his roots in the ground long enough in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to maybe Game of Thrones this thing properly and just allow his son to take over at UNC, and he can just head on out the door to Dallas, Texas. It would be interesting. And we were talking earlier with Matt Ryan about potential suitors. He was saying it's either going to be a young guy who has a look ahead approach with the understanding that it's going to be a tough sledding for a few years, or, in my opinion, Jerry goes and gets the best guy that he can for the job. And I think we can all agree that Bill Belichick is on the short list of people that we can't argue with his production. We can't argue with his expertise. And you're going to need that when you're making a change, particularly in a place like Dallas. I think Belichick would be great.
Yeah, there was rumors at the time when he signed the North Carolina deal that it included a clause that Steve would be the heir apparent to him at North Carolina when he did hang it up or when he did leave. Is that true? And would that still happen should Bill Belichick leave to go to Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the report, obviously. There has been nothing to substantiate that in the time since. So, you know, sometimes great stories, unfortunately, aren't true. Not saying this one isn't, but no one has been able in the past 5+ weeks to substantiate that.
All right, Bill Belichick's former team, the New England Patriots, were the first to make a move at the head coaching position in this offseason cycle. Not a big surprise. As soon as they fired Gerard Mayo, everyone and their mother was saying Mike Vrabel was going to be the next head coach of the New England Patriots. They made it official yesterday. How did this all go down? And was this an admission of mistake, or was this kind of the guy they just wanted the whole time, but just weren't able to get him last year?
Yeah, I think the answer probably doesn't have to be one of the two. It can be both, right? Because you got to go back to when Robert Kraft signed Gerard Mayo after the 22 season to be the coach in waiting. He didn't want to lose him. At the time, you know, the Titans are doing pretty well, had gone to 3 straight playoffs, you know, an AFC title game, I think like a year or two before that. So if you really, really liked Mike Vrabel, there was a decent belief that, well, he's not going to be available for us. Also, just real quick, when we talk about coaching trades, like no one ever trades an active head coach. That is just fodder for us to talk about, but like that stuff doesn't actually happen. So just that's been a pet peeve of mine that I just wanted to hop on the soapbox when people talk about trading coaches. I don't think that's happened in 2 decades. So anyway, Robert Kraft wanted Mike Vrabel after he fired Gerard Mayo, after Gerard Mayo did not give him a lot of confidence in the last month of the season in the direction and vision and preparation of the 2025 New England Patriots. So he fires Mayo with obviously a very good idea that he's going to be able to get Mike Vrabel. The whole league knew as soon as Vrabel scheduled his in-person interview in Boston on Thursday of last week, it was over. It was over. He was going to be the head coach. And we know that the day before, the Patriots ran through the Rooney Rule and got 2 out-of-work coaches who happen to be black men to go ahead and knock that out. I mean, honest to God, let's just look at this for one quick second, because those are the rules. They interviewed 4 people, and the Patriots wanted the best of the best, right? And we all were agreeing that the top 2 coaches on the market were Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson. And we can include Bill Belichick in there if you want, but obviously he wasn't a candidate to go to New England. No one had Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton on any list anywhere.
And,
I mean,
you know,
had
it's
been out
funny
of work
that you
for
say
2
Pep Hamilton,
years.
JJ, because what was Pep Hamilton known for? Pep Hamilton was known for the failure to protect Andrew Luck in Indianapolis, and you've got a guy in Drake May who needs to be protected in New England.
So, I mean, it was egregious by the Patriots to not run any sort of real search. Again, I've talked with the league about this a lot, where sometimes I'm not going to fault Robert Kraft for wanting to go get his guy. Just like I didn't fault Mark Davis for wanting John Gruden. You know that that's who you want and that guy wants you and you can hammer out contract details. I don't actually think that's really a problem. But when we make a mockery of this process that is put in place so that everything's fair and equitable, it looks bad for everyone, and it certainly looks bad for the Krafts.
Do you anticipate changes being made to the Rooney Rule? Or is this
I
just...
agree with you on that.
Yeah, and Mike, and to your point about changes, I think that you're going to have to look at it. I know that the league had sort of considered potential succession plans. So like go back to the Cincinnati Bengals when they lost Brian Callahan. Their quarterback's coach was Dan Pitcher. Everybody in the league knew that Dan Pitcher was going to get the offensive coordinator job with the Cincinnati Bengals. He had earned it. He deserved it. And no one of any race or creed thought any differently. But then the Bengals still had to do a search and bring in 2 people of color in order to fulfill that role. I think there has to be something that the league has to do for when the obvious thing winds up being obvious, just to protect everyone else and the whole sanctity of the whole process to begin with.
Yeah, because in a situation like that, you are just being put out there as, a minority head coach, basically knowing that it is a sham. So unfortunately, they get disillusioned with the process, thinking that I'm getting these interviews and they didn't have a shot in the first place. So unfortunately, those situations, I do agree, need to be rectified. Kyle, I want your take, though, on the Vrabel hire and what he brings to the table as a football guy, and what kind of changes do you expect New England? What's the culture going to look like in that building going forward?
Well, I want to start with saying that if I were a New England Patriot last offseason when Gerard Mayo became the head coach, I would have been excited because of a few things that get me excited as a player. The opportunity to play for a guy who played the game of football at the highest level, who won at the highest level in the National Football League, and a guy who wore the colors that you wear every Sunday. That's very important to me. And it was obvious after this season that Gerard Mayo didn't live up to the expectations that Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots set out for him. But we can carbon copy that same guy and add the experience in with Mike Vrabel. He's somebody who has been a head coach prior to this. Granted, it has come with bumps in the road. The record hasn't been all too impressive at times. But one thing that we've seen from Mike Vrabel is his ability to coach a football team, be the leader of men that has been talked about in this hiring cycle. And he's a New England Patriot. And that's a guy that when he put his helmet on, I'm watching slow-mo clips of him putting his Patriots helmet on. And I'm just thinking, my God, he looks like a Patriot and he looks like a coach. And that's the same thing I thought about Gerard Mayo. But Robert Kraft said, now he is a guy who's been there and done it before. in Mike Vrabel, and he knows how to handle situations. I can't wait for the press conferences. Matt Ryan was talking about that on Sunday. I cannot wait to get back to the Belichick style press conferences of less is more and salty rather than sweet. That's really what I'm looking forward to.
All right, JJ, I'll get you out here with this just real quickly. Any idea on OC/DC candidates that we should be on the lookout for heading to New England?
In New England, obviously, offensive coordinator is Josh McDaniels. And it's Josh McDaniels because, obviously, right? He has more than a decade of experience in New England, a lot of familiarity. The Raiders are still paying him out, so you got a lot of offset money involved there. He lives still in New England. He and Mike Vrabel have worked together and have that relationship. And lastly, Mike and Kyle, whenever we talk about these coaching searches and the defensive coach, are always like, well, who's the offensive coordinator? Because he could leave and get plucked somewhere. Nobody's taking Josh McDaniels to be their head coach, right? That's over with. As far as defensive coordinator goes, I'll give you two names. Yeah, I know that Shane Bowen, who is with the New York Giants, is a name that's been thrown out there. Another one that I would keep a close eye on is Lou Anarumo, former Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator, just got released from the Bengals last week. He's interviewing with the Indianapolis Colts, probably some other places as well. But I look at Lou and I say, that's a guy who over the past couple of years, and Kyle, you know this because you were standing on the other sideline, that's a guy, if there's one guy in the NFL who can consistently stifle and stymie Patrick Mahomes, the best football player in the NFL. Not all the time do the Cincinnati Bengals win, but no defensive coordinator has had as much success as regularly as Lou Anarumo. And if you are the Patriots in the AFC and you plan to be competing for more Lombardis, you better go make sure that you can get through Kansas City. And so that's why keep a close watch on Lou Anarumo.
Ooh, that would be an all-time retread staff, right up there with like the Chiefs for just like guys who have been around it